Alright, welcome to... Oh, shit. Okay, welcome to the next podcast.
Yo!
Episode 3.
I thought it was like 4 or some shit.
It's not 3, it's only on 3. Kinsman Podcast 3. What was our topics? We have media, censorship, space, and
robot citizenship.
robots.
Should be fun.
Alright. How are y'all doing today? I mean, I already talked to you a little bit earlier in the stream, but how you doing?
Good. We got... Is Yuri here?
It's just Yer. Y-E-R. That's his name. Y-E-R. Yer. Not Yuri. That's some weeb shit.
Is Yuri here?
No, he's
Are
not.
you saying weeb just because he's Korean?
No, Yuri
I'm pretty
sounds
sure that's
kind of
what
like
it is.
your thing. Okay. Yeah. We're just chilling. You look very comfortable there,
I am
PJ.
very comfortable.
Yeah. All right.
Fuck. My shit's lagging. Alright.
Do you want to do a thing, Grant? Do you want to start off with one of your topics, or do you want me to start off with mine?
Oh, you have
starting
your
with
own
this.
topics too?
Okay, we'll start off with mine. Okay. So I haven't thought about this in a long time, but there's a lot of talk about media censoring people. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the other thing, where people disagree with certain types of media, such as articles, games, movies, whatever. And they disagree with the message that they're portraying and therefore want it to be removed from the public sphere. So, for example, something that we learned in class and stuff like that is people did a lot of science fiction books that are based in like kind of like white nationalist racist type of like message. Like, for example, there was one stupid thing where it was basically like a bunch of these, like there was a time in the world where white people were the minority, and so they got like really upset and started to rise up against the other people and some shit. And then there was also another one where like these white people that were like, I think it might have been the same story, something like the white people are like considered sacred or whatever, so then they were sent to space to make their own white colony on somewhere else. It's so bad. But yeah, things like this, like also just like even like things like there was this game that came out, I don't know, like 2015ish or something like that, where basically it was called Hatred, and it was this dude. You control a guy that's just a mass murderer, and you go and kill a bunch of civilians. And that was the whole game. And this type of stuff people like go outraging about. And you're still muted, by the way, Grant, if you didn't know.
Oh, I was just saying that kind of like Modern Warfare 2.
Oh, with like the airport scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people get really mad with that stuff and says that they should take it down.
Right.
And I just wanted to know what your thoughts on that types of stuff is.
Well, can you also like remember that one game you played where it asked you a bunch of that?
Oh yeah, Red Strings Club.
Can you like do you remember what questions it asked you? Like what would you censor?
Okay. For a little bit of context, Red Strings Club is this science fiction game where you play as a bartender and you get information from people and whatnot. And a lot of this is based off of this new technology that is able to more or less use facial expressions, gestures, and stuff like that to code your brain into thinking certain things. So, it's such as like I don't know, like kind of code out like homophobia, and also just like coding out like things like happiness or sadness and stuff like that, so you don't feel it anymore. And it asks you a bunch of questions like, should you be able to control somebody's sadness, can you, if you were able to prevent somebody's suicide using like this stuff, would you allow people to be homophobes or cause violence because of it? Like things with racism and stuff like that too.
Like hate crimes, stuff like that.
Yeah. So like basically it's like, are you like, you have to kind of weigh like what things are bad versus how much free will somebody should have at the same time and free thought. So yeah, it's kind of similar.
I don't like. I would never.
Okay, but here. Oh wait, sorry, my bad. I didn't even hear PJ.
No, you could go. You could go.
I need to fix my audio so I can hear it, you guys. But quick question before like I give my opinion, and then PJ can give his. But like in this scenario, who would be in charge of the censoring? Would it be the government? Would it be like the people's choice? Like, would it be like PG-13 games will like for sure not have this stuff in it, or like stuff like that? Like who do you in your scenario or whatever, who would do the censorship?
I'm not too sure. For the most part, I was just kind of thinking that there was that.
Like, let's say hypothetically, the government forces a search engine like companies or whatever to filter their stuff.
Sure, we can go with that.
Like Twitter is like.
Like I'm just thinking like, what do you guys feel about like?
Oh, just the
just
idea.
just yeah, like cause like for example like something I don't know, like that hatred game, I guess, for example, that it would get so much backlash that no, this is good. I forgot about this. The game was basically kind of like shown and kind of like gain its like kind of like got the ball rolling on Steam.
Right.
And then right before it was gonna come out, they removed it from Steam, so you couldn't get it on Steam anymore. So it was removed from the like one of the biggest platforms to get games on. So that's a type of censorship, is companies kind of I guess limiting what you can do with your game. Now it's still free to the public. You can still buy it elsewhere, but it was removed on Steam. I don't know if it came back or not, but yeah.
Like honestly, here's my opinion on it. I think something should be filtered, like extreme shit, like I don't know, like someone being like what is that thing called, decapitated or whatever, because I've seen that shit on the internet all the time.
Yeah, ISIS like killings and stuff like that.
It could be anything, and I forgot what website I was on, but I was not that I was like enjoying
Probably
it
live
or being.
It was probably live.
Like, I wasn't being entertained by it, but I was just
No, yeah, we get it.
like, I don't know.
You clicked on it.
It made me feel. I clicked on it, like that was my choice, but I felt like disgusted and like.
Right.
I just feel like that shit shouldn't be out there, like for people to watch. Like.
But then at the same time, isn't that like the freedom of the press in a sort of way?
I mean, in a way, yeah, but like, it's literally some fucking dying.
I know, but like, say like they showed that, but in like a political way, like say like for example, this is a very wild scenario, but say for example, some American like nice group like the KKK, right, was killing a lot of black people, and then this really like this journalist that liked to show the raw of what's happening and not just sugarcoat anything, showed like kind of maybe like a blurred out image, like slightly blurred, of a dead black guy's body by them, and was like, this needs to stop, this is what is happening to these people. Like that would be the same scenario as that, like it's showing the person dying, but like it's just a different, like these people are trying to do it for
that's different though, because what you're saying means that it has a purpose. If it's just out there with no purpose or context.
Yeah, but how do those people get the video?
What?
That those people would get that video from that source that has no purpose. It's not like they're the
That's
people that
not
tweet it.
necessarily true. Things like ISIS and stuff do that shit as propaganda to try and get
Yeah.
people into their shit, because they'll kind of turn it to the thing where like this is us getting justice and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so my point is just like, just filter out anything where like is super. Well, I don't really know. Like I was gonna say graphic, but then if you think about it, like
A lot of stuff.
it could be informational too, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But like
That's what
just in a way
like
that it's not like a form of entertainment
right.
to be filtered.
What
But-
all I was trying to like, I agree with you. All I was trying to say was like, see, like there's like, how would you know which one to like do? Like they're the same thing, right? But like, one just for like a good reason, one's like for a bad reason, in our opinion. But in the opinion of ISIS, that's like they're doing a good thing. Like I said, they're doing that for justice. So it's like a big double standard, like when you would censor it and when you wouldn't. But like, I don't know where like I stand on the whole thing. Like, see, here's one thing: when Riley says like filtered and all of those, right? What I'm thinking is like, say you're playing a video game, right? And as a cutscene where a lot of that stuff is like that, you could have like maybe a special TV that filters, or like something. Like maybe it'd be internet wise, like your internet provider, your parents could put a filter on graphics, stuff like that, and then soon as that cutscene comes up, it's like blurred, kind of like when people get their face blurred.
Oh, they
and
already
it's
have that for
pixels.
like yeah.
Right, but what if that was like internet connected wise, and like the people like, so if your kid ever played like a graphic game and that cutscene popped up, it would instantly blur it.
What does that have to do with your internet though?
I'm saying that's how they control it.
So
through
through
your-
your service provider, they like filter out.
Like how your cable provider, you can choose if your kid doesn't watch this and that.
Mhm.
It'd be the same thing. But if we're, that's just like another idea I had of it. But then Riley is also talking about like you wouldn't be able to see any racism or hate crimes on any of those like websites or like anything like that, or like how on Reddit you can basically go watch people die and that wouldn't be a thing. So
I mean,
what my opinion on that is like, sure, it would do a lot of people like good mentally wise, I guess, because some people are just like they can't watch that stuff. Like
honestly, all that is wrong. Like just like
yeah, it's
the
all
fucking-
wrong.
But like at the same
it's-
time, it would be
this
wrong.
is
to, like-
America, to be honest. Like we have freedom of the press, we have freedom of speech, we have a lot of like stuff to like protect those.
Though it's like wrong to like say words and like shit like that, but like
Yeah, it's like
it's still freedom of speech. Like if you
Right.
take
Riley knows, but do you know who Steven Crowder is?
no,
Well,
Oh, God.
he's this one like really conservative person, and he made this one video called Hate Crime where he was in a white suit and literally like white like fucking unitard, and he literally went around and said hate crime is not a thing, and legally hate crime is not a thing because freedom of speech. Like you can't get arrested for going and calling someone the N-word. Like now, if you use it in a verbally attacking way, like verbal like assault, is it, or harassment, then you can be like charged. But you can't be charged for hate crime because it's not a thing legally. And so like you would be censoring hate crime when hate crime is not a thing legally, and it's basically like freedom of speech would overrule that. So like censoring it would get rid of our freedom of speech. And in many countries we don't have freedom of speech. And so I think maybe in other countries that could be a thing. And like maybe it's okay with that government, but like our government values, or not government, just our people like value our freedoms of press and speech too much. But then again, the White House, sorry I'm talking a lot, but then again, the White House, like recently, I don't know if Rai saw, but the White House, Donald Trump banned a certain uh reporter from going into the White House because he was asking the president like hard questions, challenging questions, and that basically like kind of denied the press because he was like just like I would have to like show the video, but the White House was just like kind of getting rid of the freedom of the press in that situation, and it was like very wrong. And even like the president even lied in camera saying that he just hurt his intern, which was a female. Said, "How dare you? Like you should be disgusted that you just hurt her." When like there's video that he never even touched the woman.
I mean, the dude still could have asked those questions. It doesn't mean he had to answer them now.
No, he tried to ask, and he would say no, and he had the intern go and take his microphone away.
Dang.
Like he pointed at him and took his microphone away. When all he was asking was like saying why was he being racist about the caravan, and the president said he was asking challenging questions and he assaulted that girl when it actually wasn't. And the CNN can sue the White House for that. As we were talking about it in political science today. But in many cases it's like that. But I think as the people and me personally, I wouldn't want censorship because it's just like we have too much freedom for like that one little thing to happen. Like it would take away like so much from like just like our rights. But if it was like a personal thing, like I was talking about, like internet wise, where your parents could choose, like if it was censored or something, I think that's
yeah,
a
that should be
good idea.
Like I know I have friends that like have their parents filter their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember my mom, like, okay, this might get a little weird, but my mom used to like filter out like all the search engines, but I would like deactivate it and just search up porn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
hell yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like children shouldn't have access to all like the gauntlet and shit like that, cause like that's just fucked.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of that shit is traumatic. Like
Yeah.
some of the shit I watch still makes me like sad and shit. Like it's fucking scary how like dangerous people can be.
Right. Like
how,
people can post videos of like mass shootings, like any like thing, like Instagram, Reddit, anything like that, YouTube.
I know.
And a little kid that knows how to work those subreddits or those like browsers can see that.
I know.
Like without any filter or nothing.
It's crazy to think about it.
Yeah.
What do you
It's hard for me to really say what I think about it because there's two things that I think about. So one, I think for the most part censoring any sort of media is probably a bad thing because it's basically just hiding what's there. And I think people should have the ability to be informed on what's happening around them. For example, something like, I don't know, in like the 40s or something like that, people, like, it could have been possible that, like, fucking, like, interracial relationships or whatever were completely censored. Like, you couldn't even see it if you wanted to. And so it kind of just, like, kind of perpetuates some racism and stuff like that. And I think that's a pretty bad thing. So I think having exposure to stuff could do that. But at the same time, certain types of media can, like, basically the way I see it is if it's not hurting anybody, it's okay. But there are things that could cause people to get hurt. Like, if there is a lot of, like, one thing that I'm pretty much against is child porn.
Right, obviously.
Because, like, that type of media, I don't really think should be accessed for people. Because if they're able to be accessed, that also means that there's a demand for it from people. and that means that
Exactly.
children will be harmed in the process.
You wanna?
Similarly, things with like people getting murdered and shit. While I don't know, because that stuff is, I've seen a lot of it, and I don't really think it. I don't know how much of a demand it really calls for, but yeah, that shit I don't know if should be banned or not, because a lot of people, like you said, Grant, it's kind of like a useful thing in some
Right.
certain circumstances, and it kind of puts your life into perspective in a lot of ways too.
Let me
So
let me,
yeah.
let me use an example real quick. Grant,
Right.
were you okay when the people posted dead body of X on the internet and it went viral?
I was like, okay, I had very conflicting thoughts on it. One, I thought how the guy was videotaping his body was very disrespectful because he was dead or dying and he was just sitting there videotaping him not doing anything about it.
Right.
As like a big fan of his, like someone that really cared about him, I like it was like kind of, it was hard, it was really hard to watch, and like I felt like it was very just like disrespectful to be filming and like showing his dead body like that lifeless.
All right.
But at the like, especially with how they're getting up in his face and everything, and but at the same time, I think I brought a lot of people like because as you know, like people didn't even believe he was dead,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think it brought a lot of people like Riley was saying is like people like sometimes need to see something. Like it informs them like it's their choice to click that or not. Like I looked that video up and watched it, and like to like see and to like know like that was really gone. That was the last video of him.
To really like, yeah.
Like
I think
let it
like
sink in. Like it did hit me because I saw that. But if I just heard somewhere that he got shot, I would just it would hurt, but like I wouldn't have that deep feeling that I did from watching the video. Like I think it shouldn't have been like really censored, even though they did blur some out. Like some had the respect where they blurred out because the person was like very disrespectfully filming.
right.
But like I felt like it had a right to be there. People post it, it's their choice to watch it and everything. So and like Instagram has it like a warning, like it says click this graphic. It's graphic. They block it and they say graphic. Click if you want.
Well, what about when the people on social media made memes about his dead body?
That's obviously disrespectful, and like disrespecting the dead is never okay. Like it doesn't matter if it's like
But don't you think
something
that should be
horrible.
filtered out? That shouldn't be there. Like that should be something to joke about, right?
I obviously I think that, but I think that should be kept to like something else. Like I personally just think there should be like what's the word when you like just file a corpse?
Necrophilia? Is that
No,
it?
no, 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 no.
Is that even the right term?
Necrophilia is when you fuck a corpse.
When you
Oh shit.
disembody a corpse?
No, when you like are messing with a dead body, isn't that against the law?
Well, that you're contaminating evidence.
I don't even know what it's called.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I just feel like it's very disrespectful, and lots of things are disrespectful, just like hate crimes, but they're not laws. And
Right.
they are freedom in the speech in their way. Like maybe a lot of people hated X and they wanted that they were getting back at him for that. And now personally, I think that's very fucked up, but at the same time, it's like law, and I can't do anything about that. Anything. Now, if there was filtering, I would set a personal filter to not see any of that. But I would not make the choice for nobody to see that. Like,
Right.
if I could go on Instagram and be like, X dead filter. Like, things tagged with X dead, I don't want to see. I would do that, but I wouldn't have that be just like a thing for everybody.
I
If that
think
makes sense.
I think if you're going to post a video like that of like someone dying or someone's dead body or just anything kind of related to like something like traumatic like that, I think you need approval first. Maybe you get approval from the source you're about to put it on, or from anyone, or like anything that's connected, and approval from higher people, I guess.
Right, but then at the
Sure.
point, like I said, we have freedoms, and that takes away from freedom of the press and freedom of speech, because Instagram, like, they're and YouTube, they allow what you put. They let you put it on there. They'll let you do it without question. But then as soon as they see it and it's fucked, they may take it off. Getting their approval, like, to post it is not what they want, but they do have the right to take it off. Like, Twitter lots of times deletes tweets from people or bans them for like bad things they say or stuff like that. Like Elon Musk like had to pay over a $2 million fine to Twitter about something he said after smoking weed. And he said it was 100% worth it. Yeah, he had to pay over like a $2 million fine, I'm pretty sure. Because like they let's see, Elon Musk Twitter. Elon Musk says tweet that led to $20 million fine was worth it.
What the fuck? 20 million?
Elon Musk said that
a lot more than 2 million.
Cost him and the company $20 million in fine for each of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commissions was worth it.
Interesting.
What the fuck? That's a
I think what he
$20 million.
Yeah, I think all he said was considering taking Tesla private at 420 is what he said. The tweet he said was considering taking Tesla private at $420, funding secured.
What was that? What was a tweet?
That's what I just said.
I spaced out.
The tweet was that. That's what he said.
I'm considering taking Tesla private at $420, funding secured.
Yeah, that's what he said after doing the whole smoking weed with Joe Rogan. And that costed him over $20 million in fines from Twitter and companies.
What the fuck does that got to do with Twitter?
Yeah.
Because he posts on Twitter.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with Twitter? Why is he getting fined from Twitter?
Exactly.
It seems like you should.
Oh, no! Listen.
It should be.
Chief Executive Elon Musk said the tweet that cost him him and the company $20 million in fines by each of the U.S. Securities and Exchange, let me just, so then I don't get it wrong. Here. Commission.
Tesla chief exec Elon Musk said the tweet that cost him and the $20 million fine by each of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission was worth it.
So it wasn't a fine from Twitter. It wasn't a fine from Twitter. So I did get that part wrong.
Okay. Yeah, you had me confused. Like, the fuck does that
Yeah,
got to do with Twitter?
yeah. I did get that wrong. But let's see if they removed his tweet. I don't know if they did. Yeah, I think they removed his tweet.
All right, do you guys want to move on to the next topic? We were on that one for a long time.
Yeah, sure. We'll move on to the next one.
Do you know how long we've been doing this? Somebody should be
No.
keeping track because usually I keep track based on the time I've been streaming, but I was streaming far before that, so I have no
Yeah,
fucking
but
idea.
didn't you stop the stream?
No.
Oh. Okay. Let's see. So the next topic is robot citizenship, and our main point is this robot named Sophia. We started the podcast around 9:20, so this has been going on for like 26 minutes. Okay, so our next topic is robot citizenship. PJ, how about you start off with your thoughts on it?
Do we go
Like,
into
if you think
detail about
robots should be a citizen.
it? It depends how advanced the AI is for a robot. Otherwise, it's just gonna be considered property.
Okay, give
Like a
your
computer, like my, give me an example of like what, like when it's considered property.
no, consider what you would find acceptable, or like what kind of robot are you thinking of?
Like, or deserves a citizenship that is programmed to believe it has a consciousness of its own and convinces itself that it's living. And
Right.
it's kind of, I don't
Like
know.
to the
In my
point where
head,
they're like so complex that they
they're
don't
so.
even know they're like a robot and they think they're alive living.
It's just like an artificial human. Like that's just what comes in my head.
See, when I think of what you're talking about, I think of this one game called Soma. And in this game, the robot literally looks at like its hand and like doesn't even know it's a robot.
Mhm.
Riley, can you explain more? Because you actually played the game.
I don't fucking know. I don't know how this really.
How? Why? Just
Or like
explain the
Detroit
robots
Become
thought they were a human and didn't even know they were a robot. Or
Well,
what they were.
and a lot of things in Soma were like these things, because this is different. This is not really the way this works is different than what we're talking about. Basically, it was people's consciousness, like basically their brains or some shit were able to get scanned, and it would transfer or make a copy of their consciousness and put it in, and you could put it into something like a robot. And so it was a person
Right.
that was put into a robotic body for the most part, because it was the same consciousness. It was just a copy. So this is not the same thing. It's just at least for that, I would assume that because they were human all their life, it would be very hard for them to believe that they suddenly changed into a robot. Because
Is Jayana on that blanket?
Gianna's on that blanket, yes.
What? That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Nah, but I was watching like Detroit Become Human, or not like watching.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing, my dude.
And it like really got me thinking. Like, it doesn't even recognize that it's like the one girl. What is her name? Alice? Like the little like girl that like.
Yeah.
Abusive. Like she didn't even recognize that she was an android or whatever.
Right.
Like they didn't figure out until later on in the game.
Or do you guys
Like,
know what Fallout is?
What?
Do you know what Fallout
Are you gonna
is?
talk about synths?
Yeah, talk about sense.
I don't know much
Something
about
like
Fallout, but
I
all I
don't
know
know.
okay,
is
basically what sense are like so the institute, which is kind of like the government, you could say,
Okay.
creates a really lifelike robot, and
Right.
then sends it. That's a lifelike robot that's exactly like a certain human, and then they send a team with that robot, and that robot replaces that actual human, and then they get rid of that human. And
Mm.
then that robot takes over that human's life and pretends to be that human. But the synth is programmed to actually believe that they're them and they don't know the difference.
Okay.
And so, like, when they find out they're a synth, they're like, oh my god, when was I taken? And they start freaking out and they sympathize. Like, if it was their life.
So at
Like, they
that
have all
point,
the memory of that person and everything.
where it comes to the point where artificial intelligence believes it is living and has a life,
Right.
then give it a citizenship, make sure it has equal rights as a human.
That's not.
Um,
Because, like, whatever,
okay.
like, they did have citizenship and someone shot that robot, that person wouldn't go to jail because, like, that thing didn't even have citizenship.
I mean, if it has equal
Th-
rights as
no,
us, and
there's a
if it,
difference between being a citizen and being considered in like the moral framework of
Okay, but if that thing
play.
had citizenship, it couldn't just be killed without the person being
Sure,
punished.
but also Mexicans aren't citizens of the U.S.
Okay, but they're human.
Sure.
If you shoot your computer, are you gonna get in trouble, Riley?
Not really.
Okay.
Okay.
Now just say
But okay.
that.
But,
But
okay. The real question is, how can you determine whether something should be considered morally, I guess? How like an AI can be considered morally?
When it
At
believes
what
it's
point
living.
can okay, how do you know when it believes it's living?
yeah, because that could just be a programmed thought for it to say and believe.
Yeah.
Damn.
I personally don't think they should be citizens, and like because whenever I think about it, like no matter how
property?
complex they get, they're still programmed to think that way. Like how we were taught certain things, and then we self-developed ourselves. Like unless that robot was like programmed with the smallest thing and then learned by itself to act a certain way, I don't think it should be considered like morally.
So you're saying if it's not programmed like a baby is until it's an adult, like it learns new and new things.
Yeah, like
Yeah, learns all that
do
new
you
knowledge.
know? Do you know the movie Chappie?
Yeah, they just transfer the consciousness.
No,
from
no,
one
no.
group.
The robot was a robot at first,
Yeah,
but it was of a baby's mind, and it had to learn to like become who the robot was.
right.
That's what I'm saying. The robot should have to be like until it becomes like a citizen or on the moral scale with what Riley was talking about. That's
So
what I think.
it has to take in all this new info slowly.
Yeah, it has to be able to
gradually.
be so complex that it can learn itself and have its own thought.
Okay, well, how do you know it has its own thought?
By the actual, like, if it's a robot, you will be able to see the coding. And, like, just like brainwaves, you can see,
Whoa.
like, spots that light up in the brain when you think about some.
Grant, that doesn't make sense because that happens in every computer.
Right?
And any sort of learning algorithm is used in computers already. There's a lot of stuff.
So you're proving my point.
What's the difference between that and something that
computer, you can see over time if it's learned by itself, or like if the code has at least developed by itself without someone going back in.
shit like that's already happening? Do we consider the computer that you have right next to you as a lot of search engines, a lot of the shit for showing you YouTube videos and shit like that? All that's learned algorithms.
Right.
Or
But
like
are
a
they
good
about like religion, or are they about morals, or are they about like filtering and stuff like that, or advertising?
It's, where are you getting?
I'm saying when a human grows up, you can see like how its thoughts have changed and everything.
and it gets neurons firing,
Sure.
basically.
I'm
So
saying if we can find that similarity in them, but in just like a technological way that we can tell it's learning like a human would,
What does
that's how we
learning
would
like a
decide.
human mean?
because everyone like learns things
How do you learn,
differently.
Riley? You learn from experience, and then you change minds, and you go through peer
Exactly.
review to change
Computers already
yourself.
do that.
Okay, but in a more complex way.
Well, what constitutes a more complex way?
Riley, you realize you're arguing something that neither of us can argue. None of us know the technology behind that to answer that question.
I'm
If it
okay.
comes out, then yeah.
What
But
I'm
you don't
getting
know.
at, Grant? What I'm getting at,
Even if I said something,
Grant,
you
listen to
know
me.
if it's true or not.
Grant, listen to me. What I'm getting at is that in order for there to be a point where you say, okay, we should consider this thing living, there has to be a point, something that you can test to say, okay, now they should be considered living.
Yeah, and I just said. But
What you're saying is, for some arbitrary complexity that you didn't specify at what point, then it should become considered living. Because the things that you already described, they already do, but not complex enough. What the fuck does that mean?
I'm talking about like the movie. If you don't know the movie, then I won't be able to explain it to you.
What movie? Chappie?
Chappie.
It doesn't. Okay. I shouldn't have to watch a movie to understand this, Grant.
Well, I don't know how they explained it in the movie. They just did.
Regardless, if they explain it any way that you just explain it, it still doesn't solve the problem at which point you call something living.
I didn't say it was living.
Okay, it should be considered in a moral framework.
Just.
Because that's our whole point right now. Because in order to be a citizen, you should have the ability to be considered in a moral framework. Otherwise, there's no point.
In the definition of citizen, though.
Okay, a citizen is somebody. Okay, let's see what a citizen gets. A citizen gets the right to vote, to get a right to live, get a right to blah 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 blah. All these things. Why are these people getting these rights? Because if they didn't get those rights, it would be an immoral thing.
Look up the definition of it. There's no thing that says a citizen has to be human.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it should be considered in a moral framework. Do you know what that means? Yes.
Citizens should be in a moral framework? Well,
citizens should be to be a citizen, you have to be considered in a moral framework.
How? How do you say so?
Because if you weren't considered in a moral framework, then there's no reason for you to have any rights.
But there's other living things, right? That are been proven living. And
yes.
They're not on,
exactly, because they're not considered in our moral framework. Now that could be argued. That could be argued whether that's actually a right thing or not. But for the most part, if you kill a cow, nobody's gonna care because they're not considered in our moral framework. Nobody cares, nobody matters, nobody really feels for the cow, unless you're a vegan or whatever.
Wait, you guys are arguing for your same point because Grant just said that AI shouldn't get.
I know Grant is just arguing me for no fucking reason.
No, I'm not.
You're saying I'm saying. In order to be a citizen, you have to be considered in a moral framework, and you're like, that makes no sense. I'm like, what the fuck?
No, I'm not saying that makes sense. I never said that makes sense.
Okay, then why do you keep arguing with me with it?
Because I just said they don't always have to be moral. Or I said, in that scenario, Chappie, I would consider moral framework.
Okay. But
Like,
why? Why? Why is he considered in the moral framework?
Just how, like, it was raised, I guess. And then they were able to test it at the end of the movie. They were able to test his brain, and they were able to actually move his, like, brain into, like, a living body, and it worked.
Okay, so let's move on from this, and I'll put something that has a somewhat parallel to it. Okay. Let's say you grew up with a pig, like a cute little pig, and you grew up with it, and it was one of your friends and whatnot, and all that stuff. Would you be sad if somebody shot it in the face?
Obviously, yes.
Okay. Now, let's say, would you be sad if you ate bacon?
No.
Why?
Personal connection.
Exactly. There's a personal connection to this robot. That's why you care.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they should be a citizen. Just because they fit your moral framework doesn't mean it fits everybody's.
Well, yeah, that's the same with dogs. If someone shoots your dog, they will go to jail for that. But it's not because that dog's a citizen.
Sure.
And neither is it on, like...
Because they are considered in the moral framework. That's why.
They're considered property. That's why. It's destruction of property.
Is that why? Is that really why?
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. You can look it up.
Because I'm pretty sure if you kill a dog, you go for...
Well, it's domestic, like, violence, too. Wait, no. Is it not? It's not domestic. Is it?
No, it's not domestic.
Okay. All I'm saying is that there has to be a defining point in which you call something, which you can be considered something a citizen. There has to be a defining point. Otherwise, you can literally call anything a citizen. You could call this cup a citizen because, you know, it has all this shit, so.
Right, I agree with you. I was just saying, in the movies, they were able to, like, test that way. I don't know how, but because it could have been fake science.
That certainly sounds like fake science, because, like, what you just said is that, oh, if you show that with certain stimuli and how the way they learn and stuff like that is mapped to their brain could be the same thing for a fucking computer. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. A robot is just an advanced computer.
Exactly. So
Well, how do we recognize
so this test could be tested on just a normal computer, and it would show basically the same thing.
Right. Okay. What, PJ?
Like, how do we recognize we're living? Like, we sleep, we eat, and we shit, right? We breathe, right? So, like, with a computer, you know, it's like plugged in. It has a source of energy.
And then it has wires.
Right. So, technically speaking,
this gets into the argument of, like, what makes you human, what makes you a robot.
exactly. It's kind of the same thing, but different.
Just
you know?
what deserves rights and what doesn't.
Exactly.
Right, in what scenario for you would a robot need rights? Or should it have rights, in your opinion?
It's hard for me to say. The best answer I can say is that its mannerisms, its speech, its basically the way it lives is indistinguishable from a human.
So it could just be a very well programmed robot that acts a lot like a human.
Yes, because I don't think there's a way for us to tell the difference. There's something in philosophy which is pretty similar. It's called a philosophical zombie. Have you heard of it?
I've not.
Okay, basically it's somebody that is it works just like a human. They talk, they show emotion, they do all this stuff. Like basically they look just like a human, but they have no thought. There's nothing in here. Absolutely nothing. There's no thought, there's no actual true feeling, there's nothing.
So just like it's
There's no way you could possibly tell. There's no way you could possibly
Well,
tell.
could you tell with like an MRI scan?
No, because their brain works the same way as ours.
They just would have like no feeling, no thought.
All the senses, experiences, and stuff that you have personally that
Right.
you cannot share with another person
Right.
is what they lack. So they can't see, they can't feel, they can't do anything. They don't exist
But could,
other than like the shell of a
what if-
human
what if
that
it
they
was, like,
you can't tell.
Well, you
what
can
if
say
it's
the
like a
same thing about
what
a
if
human.
they did like a polygraph?
They
like-
work exactly the same way as any other human.
I know, but like when you have feelings or something, that can override your like however they test a polygraph, like your pulse and everything.
Sure,
So you
the
could
everything
tell-
physical about them, it works the same way as a human. So if they start crying, if something happens to them and they cry, their eyes well up. If they get really angry, they'll punch something and stuff like that. But they don't actually have any of these feelings. It's all
Well, that's just the same thing
programmed.
like a human.
Exactly.
We-
Exactly,
yeah.
but the thing is, they literally have no thought, no free will, nothing like that. But you can't know that because you can't test for that. You can't test their experience. You can only test the result of their experiences. Really. You could look it up. I'm probably not explaining it well.
How do
enough.
we know we're not?
No, I get what you mean though.
That's exactly the
Okay.
point. The only thing you can really know is that you yourself are not, because you have these feelings, you have these emotions, you have these experiences that
The
you can
fuck
feel.
is that? Oh,
So
man.
you're saying like in that scenario, I wouldn't be able to tell from like me talking to you. Right?
Yes. That's what a philosophical zombie is. It's something that you cannot tell whether it's truly living or not.
Okay, so going back to your point, then a robot would just have to be that advanced to act like a human that we can't even like tell the difference. You're okay with
In
that?
our framework of how citizens work, because they're based on humans, then yes. If it kind of broadens to like other animals and stuff like that, maybe if they just show a certain amount of I
No,
guess
but what
consideration.
I'm asking is, like, would you rather you think that is the point where they should become citizens, or do you think they should be able to have free thought and have emotions like independent and not just be tricked to act that way?
What do you mean? The thing for me is that I don't think you can tell which one is which.
No, I'm saying what would your preference be?
For what?
Like, would you rather have it be like able to?
In terms of
Have
what?
something.
Why would I rather have it that way or the other? What is this referring to? Referring to them being a citizen? Referring to them
Yes.
being considered like in like an emotional way, into a moral way? What are we talking about here?
Moral and citizen, like we've been discussing.
I mean, I guess, but again, like I said, there's no way to tell, so you can't. So, it's kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's end of that.
It's like saying, would you like to feel happy all the time? Sure. I don't know how. I don't know. It's impossible. So it's not nothing to really say about it.
Right.
What was that one thing you brought up earlier? It was like, if you can make anyone like be happy with a machine, like would you? I kind
Me
of
or
Oh.
Riley?
Oh, are you talking about the thing where I was talking about that game, Red Strings Club?
yeah.
Yeah, it was basically like I was saying, it was like a way of like basically coding things between people, and you're able to make somebody feel like content and happy all the time.
You basically give them like a mod, like a chip in their like in them that would make them feel a certain way. Like they would like have more motivation to do something, or they wouldn't be so insecure, stuff like that.
Right.
That's not the same thing, but kind
No,
of.
but that was some of the mods in there.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. There's two parts of that game, Grant. You didn't really pay attention. There was that, and there was also I don't forget what it's called, but it's basically a way to there was something in those mods that was able to change their thoughts rather than their actions and stuff like that.
But it's similar.
It's similar, but it's not the same. That's what I'm trying to say. But
I'm
yeah.
just saying, like. But yeah. So I think that's the end of that topic.
I think we're already an hour into the stream.
Yeah. I think this is probably where we should cut it off. I'll be honest.
We could do like 2 topics a podcast or something.
We started at 9:20. At 50 minutes.
That's good for me.
Yeah. I feel like if we do another topic, it's going to be well over 10 minutes.
Yes,
Well,
thank you for
yeah,
Thanks
thank you
for
for
tuning
watching.
Be sure to subscribe and follow my Twitch channel.
Leave a comment down below what you think about our topics that we discuss. We'll see you guys in the future.
leave a like, hit that bell, ding ding.
Hit that Taco Bell button.
Don't do any of this, okay? Never.